Between August and December, 8 men are scheduled to face execution for crimes that left communities shattered and families broken. Each case is a window into darkness, a tale of violence, loss, and the long road to retribution. What drives a man to destroy a life? And what does it mean when the state decides his time has come? This is a story of guilt, punishment, and the finality of death row. Before we dive in, please take a moment to like and subscribe to be a part of our growing community. Byron Black was 32 years old in April 1988 when he unleashed a nightmare in Nashville, Tennessee. Angela Clay, 29, was a devoted mother and nurse's aide. Her life centered on her two daughters, LaToya, 9, and Lakeisha, 6. Angela was known for her warmth, often working late shifts to provide for her girls, who loved school and dreamed of bright futures. She and Black had been in a rocky relationship for months, marked by arguments and his growing possessiveness. By early 1988, Angela had ended things, seeking to protect her daughters and reclaim her life. But Black couldn't accept her decision. Consumed by jealousy, he spent weeks planning his revenge, his anger simmering as he watched Angela move on. On the night of April 22, 1988, he drove to her apartment on Murfreesboro Road, armed with a .22 caliber handgun he'd purchased illegally. Around 2 a.m., he forced his way inside, the door creaking as he stepped into the dimly lit living room. Angela was asleep on the couch, a blanket draped over her. Without a word, Black fired 3 shots into her head and chest, the gunfire muffled by a pillow. He moved to the girls' bedroom, where LaToya and Lakeisha slept in twin beds, their walls decorated with crayon drawings. Standing over them, he shot each child once in the head, their small bodies crumpling without a sound. Black fled, taking Angela's purse and a necklace she wore daily. The crime scene was discovered the next morning by a neighbor who noticed the door ajar. Police found a horrific tableau. Angela's body on the couch, her face frozen in death, the girls in their beds, surrounded by stuffed animals. Shell casings littered the floor, and a partial footprint matched Black's boots. Investigators traced the .22 caliber gun to a local dealer who recalled Black's purchase. A witness saw his car speeding away, and within days, police arrested him at a motel, finding Angela's necklace in his bag. Black claimed he was at a bar, but his alibi collapsed when bar staff denied seeing him. The evidence was overwhelming. Fingerprints, ballistics, and stolen items tied him to the scene. In May 1989, a Davidson County jury convicted Black, then 33, of 3 counts of first-degree murder. The jury sentenced him to death. In 2025, Black's lawyers argued his implanted defibrillator could complicate lethal injection, risking a botched execution, but a Tennessee judge ordered its deactivation in a hospital beforehand. On August 5, 2025, at age 69, Black will face lethal injection at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. David Lee Roberts was 26 in April 1992 when he committed a crime that left Marion County, Alabama, in shock. Antra Jones, 24, was a vibrant young woman with dreams of teaching, her days spent volunteering at her church and caring for her boyfriend, Wendell Satterfield. The couple lived in a modest home in Hamilton, where Roberts, a transient friend of Satterfield, had been crashing for weeks. Antra was wary of Roberts, who often argued with Wendell over money and overstayed his welcome. On April 15, 1992, tensions boiled over. Wendell had asked Roberts to leave, sparking a heated confrontation. That night, while Wendell was at work, Roberts, fueled by resentment and greed, decided to act. He waited until Antra was alone, asleep on the living room couch. Armed with a .22 caliber rifle from Wendell's closet, he stood over her and fired 3 shots into her head, killing her instantly. To cover his tracks, Roberts grabbed a gas can from the garage, poured gasoline over Anitra's body and the furniture, and lit a match. Flames erupted, but a neighbor's 911 call brought firefighters who extinguished the blaze before it consumed the house. The crime scene revealed a grim truth. Anitra's bullet wounds proved murder, not a fire accident. Investigators found Roberts' fingerprints on the gas can and rifle, and a pawn shop clerk identified him selling Anitra's jewelry hours later. A witness saw him fleeing the burning house, his clothes singed. Arrested 2 days later, Roberts claimed the fire was accidental, but the evidence was overwhelming. Ballistics matched the rifle, and stolen items linked him to the crime. In December 1992, a Marion County jury convicted Roberts, then 27, of capital murder and arson. Prosecutors argued he killed to steal and silence Antra. The defense claimed he panicked after an argument. The jury sentenced him to death. Appeals focused on Alabama's nitrogen gas protocol, with lawyers arguing it risks prolonged suffering. No stays were granted. On August 21, 2025, at age 59, Roberts will face execution by nitrogen hypoxia at Holman Correctional Facility. Ralph Menzies was 28 years old in February 1986 when he committed a crime that would scar Salt Lake City, Utah. Maureen Hunsaker, 26, was a single mother working as a cashier at a gas-and-go station, her life devoted to her 5-year-old son, Michael. She worked late shifts to support her son, dreaming of a better future. Menzies, a transient with a history of theft and drug addiction, had been drifting through Salt Lake, scraping by on odd jobs and petty crimes. On February 23, 1986, he was desperate for cash to fuel his methamphetamine habit. He cased the gas station for days, noting Maureen's lone shifts. Around 11:30 p.m., he entered the station, his face partially hidden by a baseball cap. Armed with a hunting knife, he demanded money from the register. Maureen, alone and terrified, handed over $127 in cash, pleading for her life. But Menzies wasn't done. Fearing she'd identify him, he grabbed her arm and forced her to the back storeroom. There, in a cramped space filled with boxes, he stabbed her 11 times in the chest, neck, and abdomen, each wound deeper than the last. Blood sprayed across the walls, pooling on the concrete floor as Maureen collapsed, her hands clutching at the wounds. Menzies stole her car keys and fled in her 1984 Ford Escort, leaving her body slumped among the shelves. The crime scene was discovered at 6 a.m. by the morning shift worker. Police found a blood-soaked storeroom, the cash drawer empty, and Maureen's body bearing signs of a fierce struggle, defensive cuts on her hands and arms. A trail of blood led to tire tracks matching Maureen's car, found abandoned 10 miles away with Menzies' fingerprints on the steering wheel. A surveillance camera from a nearby store captured a grainy image of him entering the gas station. Investigators recovered the knife, smeared with Maureen's blood, in a dumpster near Menzies' motel. A tip from a local addict led to his arrest 3 days later, with Maureen's blood-stained jacket in his possession. During interrogation, Menzies claimed he'd only meant to rob her, but the evidence told a different story. The depth and number of stab wounds showed intent to kill. In April 1988, a Salt Lake County jury convicted Menzies, then 30, of aggravated murder and robbery. Prosecutors argued he killed to silence a witness. The defense cited his drug addiction and lack of premeditation. The jury sentenced him to death. In July 2025, the Utah Supreme Court rejected a final stay, dismissing arguments that lethal injection violates constitutional protections. On September 5, 2025, at age 67, Menzies will face lethal injection at the Utah State Prison in Draper. Blaine Millam was 19 years old in December 2008 when he committed an act so horrific it stunned Polk County, Texas. Amora Bain Carson, 13 months old, was the daughter of Millam's girlfriend, Jessica Carson. Amora was a joyful toddler, just beginning to toddle and babble, her bright eyes a source of light for her mother, a young woman struggling to build a stable life. Jessica and Millam lived in a rundown trailer in Rusk, Texas, their relationship fraught with arguments over money and Millam's volatile temper. Neighbors often heard shouting, and Jessica had confided to friends about Millam's controlling behavior. On December 2, 2008, Jessica left Amora in Millam's care to run errands, a decision that would haunt her forever. Alone with the child, Millam's rage erupted, possibly triggered by Amora's crying or a petty frustration. In a trailer cluttered with dirty dishes and clothes, he attacked the toddler with unimaginable brutality. He struck her repeatedly with a blunt object, likely a hammer from the toolbox, fracturing her skull, ribs, and limbs. Forensic evidence later revealed 24 distinct blunt force injuries, including a crushed skull and a lacerated liver. Bite marks on Amora's arms and legs bore Milam's dental impressions, a chilling sign of personal violence. When Jessica returned, Milam claimed Amora had fallen from her crib, but the injuries were too severe for such a story. Police arrived within hours, finding a crime scene that sickened even seasoned officers: blood-soaked bedding, a hammer with traces of Amora's tissue, and a toddler's body covered in bruises and bites. Autopsy results confirmed the cause of death as massive blunt force trauma. Milam's DNA and the bite marks and fingerprints on the hammer sealed his guilt. Arrested that night, he offered conflicting stories, first blaming Jessica, then claiming an intruder. But the jury didn't believe his story. The evidence was overwhelming. Forensic analysis, coupled with neighbor testimony about Milam's temper, painted a clear picture. In June 2010, a Polk County jury convicted Milam, then 21, of capital murder. On September 25, 2025, at age 35, Milam will face execution at the Huntsville unit in Texas. Next, Jeffrey Todd West was 22 years old in March 1997 when he committed a crime that would devastate Mobile, Alabama. Margaret Parrish Berry, 53, was a pillar of her community, a devoted wife and mother of three who ran Parrish's convenience store, a small shop on Old Shell Road. Known for her generosity, Margaret often gave free snacks to neighborhood kids and extended credit to struggling customers. West, a drifter with a history of burglaries and drug use, had been in Mobile for weeks, living out of cheap motels and scoping out easy targets. On March 12, 1997, he saw his chance. Margaret was closing the store alone, a routine she'd followed for years. West had visited the shop days earlier, buying a soda and noting the lack of security cameras. Driven by a need for quick cash to feed his cocaine habit, he planned a robbery. At 9:45 p.m., he entered the store wearing a dark hoodie, a .38 caliber revolver tucked in his waistband. Margaret was sweeping the floor, her back to the door. West demanded money from the register, his voice sharp and unsteady. When Margaret hesitated, reaching for the phone, he panicked and fired a single shot into her chest. The bullet pierced her heart, and she collapsed near the counter, blood pooling on the linoleum as her broom clattered to the floor. West grabbed $200 in cash, a pack of cigarettes, and Margaret's car keys, fleeing in her 1992 Toyota Camry. The crime scene was discovered an hour later by a customer who found the door ajar. Police arrived to a heartbreaking sight. Margaret's body lay in a crimson stain, her eyes open, a receipt clutched in her hand. A single .38 caliber casing was found near the counter, and tire tracks outside matched her stolen car, recovered abandoned 15 miles away. West's fingerprints were on the car's door handle and a cigarette pack inside. A local pawn shop reported West selling Margaret's watch the next day, and a witness identified him from a police sketch based on a brief glimpse outside the store. Arrested 3 days later at a bus station, West claimed he'd been robbing another store that night, but the evidence was overwhelming. Ballistics linked the revolver, found in his motel room, to the fatal shot. In November 1998, a Mobile County jury convicted West, then 23, of capital murder during a robbery. On September 25, 2025, at age 50, West will face execution by nitrogen hypoxia at Holman Correctional Facility. Roy Ward was 29 years old in July 2001 when he committed a crime that would horrify Spencer County, Indiana. Stacy Payne, 15, was a bright high school freshman, a talented flutist in the school band with dreams of becoming a music teacher. She lived with her parents in a quiet rural home near Rockport, known for her shy smile and love of helping at her church's youth group. Ward, a neighbor living 3 houses down, had a troubling past, with prior convictions for sexual misconduct and a reputation for unsettling behavior. On July 11, 2001, Stacy was home alone, her parents at work. Ward had watched the Payne house for days, noticing Stacy's routine. Driven by a depraved obsession, he planned his attack, carrying a pocket knife he'd sharpened that morning. Around noon, he knocked on the Payne's door, claiming his car had broken down and he needed to use the phone. Stacy, trusting her neighbor, let him in. Once inside, Ward's demeanor changed. He overpowered her, dragging her to her bedroom as she fought back, her screams muffled by his hand. There, he raped her, then stabbed her 7 times in the neck and chest with the knife. Blood soaked the bedspread, and defensive wounds on Stacy's arms showed her desperate struggle. Ward fled through the back door, tossing the knife into a nearby cornfield. The crime scene was discovered that evening when Stacy's mother returned home. The bedroom was a scene of horror. Stacy's body lay across her bed, surrounded by posters of her favorite bands, her flute case open nearby. Blood trails led to the back door, and police found a torn piece of Ward's shirt caught on a doorframe. A search of the cornfield uncovered the knife, with Stacy's blood and Ward's fingerprints. DNA under Stacy's fingernails matched Ward, and a neighbor saw him walking from the Payne house, sweating and disheveled. Arrested that night, Ward confessed but claimed voices in his head compelled him. The jury didn't believe his story. In August 2002, a Spencer County jury convicted Ward, then 30, of murder, rape, and criminal deviant conduct. The jury sentenced him to death. Appeals focused on Ward's psychological history and the constitutionality of Indiana's lethal injection protocol, but courts upheld the sentence. A final stay request in 2025 was denied. On October 10, 2025, at age 53, Ward will face lethal injection at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City. Lance Shockley was 25 years old in March 2005 when he committed a crime that would stun Carter County, Missouri. Dwayne Graham, 37, was a Missouri State Highway Patrol sergeant, a dedicated husband to his wife, Sarah, and father to 2 young daughters, ages 8 and 10. Known for his integrity, Graham was a familiar figure on the rural highways, often stopping to help stranded motorists or coach Little League. Shockley, a local with a history of drug-related arrests, was under investigation for a hit-and-run that killed a pedestrian weeks earlier. On March 9, 2005, Graham received a tip that Shockley was hiding at a remote cabin near Van Buren, driving a stolen truck linked to the hit-and-run. Shockley, aware of the tightening net, grew paranoid, his methamphetamine use fueling his desperation. Armed with a 12-gauge shotgun he'd stolen from a neighbor, he prepared for a confrontation. Around dusk, Graham approached the cabin alone, his patrol car parked on a dirt road. He knocked, identifying himself, but Shockley, hiding inside, saw only a threat to his freedom. As Graham stepped onto the porch, Shockley fired through the door, the shotgun blast striking Graham in the chest. Blood sprayed across the wooden steps, and Graham collapsed, his radio crackling with unanswered calls for backup. Shockley fled into the woods, leaving the stolen truck behind. The crime scene was discovered an hour later by a passing deputy. Graham's body lay sprawled on the porch, his uniform soaked in blood, a single shotgun shell nearby. Police found Shockley's fingerprints inside the cabin and on the truck, which contained Graham's stolen service pistol. A manhunt ensued, with dogs tracking Shockley through the Ozark woods. He was arrested 2 days later, hiding in a barn, dehydrated and disheveled. During questioning, Shockley claimed self-defense, saying he thought Graham was an intruder, but the evidence told a different story. Ballistics matched the shotgun to the fatal blast, and a witness saw Shockley scoping the cabin days earlier. In October 2006, a Carter County jury convicted Shockley, then 26, of first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer. The jury sentenced him to death. Appeals focused on claims of ineffective counsel and Missouri's lethal injection protocol, but courts upheld the conviction. A 2025 stay request was denied. On October 14, 2025, at age 45, Shockley will face lethal injection at the Eastern Reception, Diagnostic, and Correctional Center in Bonne Terre. Harold Nichols was 37 years old in January 1988 when he committed a crime that would horrify Chattanooga, Tennessee. Karen Pulley, 21, was a vibrant young woman, a recent college graduate working at a local bookstore. Known for her love of literature and her volunteer work at a women's shelter, Karen lived alone in a small apartment on East Brainerd Road. Nichols, a drifter with a history of sexual assaults, had been released from prison months earlier. On January 7, 1988, he targeted Karen after spotting her walking home from work. For days, he'd watched her routine, noting her late-night shifts and isolated apartment. Around 10 p.m., Nichols broke into Karen's apartment through a back window, the glass shattering quietly under his gloved hands. Karen was reading in her living room, unaware of the danger. Nichols attacked, striking her head with the hammer, fracturing her skull. As she fought back, he bound her hands with duct tape and raped her. Blood stained the carpet, and Karen's screams were stifled by a gag. Nichols struck her again, delivering a fatal blow to her temple, leaving her lifeless on the floor. He stole $50 and a necklace before fleeing. The crime scene was discovered the next morning by Karen's coworker, who grew worried when she didn't show up for work. Police found a gruesome scene. Karen's body, bruised and bloodied, lay near a shattered lamp, signs of a struggle everywhere. A bloody hammer print on the carpet matched one found in a nearby alley, with Nichols' fingerprints. DNA from the crime scene later confirmed his presence, and a pawn shop clerk identified Nichols selling Karen's necklace. Arrested 3 days later, Nichols denied involvement, but the evidence was overwhelming. In June 1989, a Hamilton County jury convicted Nichols, then 38, of first-degree murder, rape, and burglary. The jury sentenced him to death. Appeals challenged Tennessee's lethal injection protocol and Nichols' mental competency, but all were denied. A final 2025 plea failed. On December 11, 2025, at age 74, Nichols will face lethal injection at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. The stories of these 8 men and their victims highlight the fragility of life and complexity of justice. Can vengeance heal grief? Can punishment undo pain? These questions linger, challenging us to reflect on the cost of violence. What do you think about these cases? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.